You are listening to The Thought Leaders Show with the world's cutting-edge, hottest innovators, influencers, and impact makers today. If you are looking for inspiration and motivation, listen in. Welcome to The Thought Leaders Show. Now, here's your host.
Hi, this is Tammy Patzer, and I'm really excited to introduce today's guest, Bonnie Fatio. Bonnie is a master change catalyst and global speaker. She has inspired and challenged audiences on 5 continents to act under greater visions. She believes it is crucial to have women in all levels of leadership worldwide and founded Inspired Women Lead, a global cross-border cross-culture mentoring movement to champion women to step into their power as authentic feminine leaders. She has founded 3 businesses, including AgeEsteem, and held multiple leadership roles in the international and local communities and local government. She lives in Geneva, Switzerland. Welcome, Bonnie.
Thank you, Tammy. I can't tell you how delighted I am to be here and have this conversation with you, because you are one of these women leaders. So this is especially interesting for me.
Wow, I got goosebumps when you said that. I really appreciate that. And just to let everyone know, Bonnie and I met recently at the Thought Leaders Conference, the Business Experts Forum at the Harvard Faculty Club. And I was really inspired by Bonnie's message about women and leadership. So let's just get started and let's talk a little bit about who you help.
Well, first of all, could I perhaps just say a few words about what Inspired Women Lead is? So that it will be clear to people when I start explaining how I'm helping and where these people come from.
Perfect.
Because Inspired Women Lead is a cross-border, cross-culture mentoring program specifically for women's global leadership. And the idea here, Tammy, is that we are not trying to create another model. We have enough business models, leadership models out there. What we're trying to do here, not just what we're trying to do, what we are doing here is we are inspiring women leaders to lead as their authentic feminine selves. In other words, to draw on their uniqueness to complement the leadership models that are out there. And as you and I know, the leadership models today are masculine models, simply because it's been the men who have been in the leadership positions. So the idea here is not to create a feminine model. We don't need that. It is to create individual, unique, authentic feminine leaders to complement what exists. And I think it's important also to explain a little bit about this, insofar as it began as my dream and at the same time my gift to the world, because I feel so strongly that if we are going to positively transform our world into the kind of world you and I want, not just for ourselves, but for the generations to come, we must have women leaders at all levels of leadership and around the globe. So I had made that statement at one point and came home from the conference where I had spoke, and I said to myself, Bonnie, what are you going to do about this? Because you can't just talk this way, you have to act. And that's where Inspired Women Lead began, because what I did was, you heard me say to a bunch of business leaders, world leaders, that I broke all the rules. because what I did was simply began, no business plan. I simply began mentoring women in 9 countries. And I mentored each of these women for 6 months, twice a month for 45 minutes, and brought all of them together on a group call. Obviously, this is on the internet, for a group call once a month. Now, this doesn't cost anything financially to any of these women, which is another breaking the business model. I give it away. However, each of the women who goes through the program then mentors another woman. Once she has finished her 6 months mentoring, she then mentors another woman from another culture in another country for the following 6 months. And what's exciting about this, Tammy, is at several levels, because first of all, it grows exponentially. It doubles every 6 months. Secondly, the woman who has been mentored is in fact anchoring everything that she has learned, everything that she has done to develop herself during the 6 months that she was being mentored, because she is now using that material and mentoring, teaching another woman. And the best way for us to anchor, for us to instill what we've learned, for us to have it for life, is to use it. And so these women are using what they had to be mentored with another woman. And yes, they do have a mentoring guide, and yes, there is mentoring training. However, it's really in the doing, in the mentoring of another, that they get their greatest learning. And the third element there is every single woman has come back and she said, Bonnie, it is so empowering. You know, the woman I'm mentoring is saying to me things like I said to you. It's really making a difference in her life. And it's therefore empowering for me, the mentor. So this is, in a nutshell, Inspired Women Lead. So now it will be easier perhaps for the audience, our listeners here, to be able to understand the answers to the questions that you're asking me. And I'm going to have to ask you to ask your question again.
My first question, and I think you've actually explained it a little bit, is who do you help? And obviously you're helping women around the globe, but what type of woman is generally someone who would be attracted to Inspired Women Lead?
Well, I think the most important element is it's a woman who has a fire within her. You know, that pressing desire to make a difference. And that might be to make a difference in her neighborhood, in her country, or, like Inspired Women Lead, the world. But the real element of importance here is that desire, what I'm calling a fire. Because when you have that fire within you, nothing can hold you back if you're given the right guidance. And the other piece to this is often as women, and men too, I'm sure, we feel that we're on the threshold of something. I can't tell you how many times I've had mentees or women being interviewed to become a mentee say, you know, I just feel like I'm on the threshold of something, but I don't see what it is. And that too is really important, because that's the beginning of that fire. There's something in there that the person has not yet realized. So those I would say are the two most important elements. Otherwise, there are a couple criteria. One is having access to the internet, and almost everybody today does. It doesn't matter whether you're in Sri Lanka or if you're in Zimbabwe. You still have access to the internet. And the third is English. You don't need to write it, but you have to have spoken English in order to fully profit from the mentoring. And most important, to be able to relate to all of the other women within the program.
So English speaking and access to the internet. And like you said, it's amazing how you can go to countries and there they are. They have their internet cafes or some type of an internet access. So when you're working with them, with the mentoring, how, before I ask that question, so that these women have a fire, and I know that feeling, a feeling like I have something bigger than myself to contribute, but I just don't know how. And of course, being a woman, and even in the United States, we've hit glass ceilings with wages and different things, but I imagine in other countries, it's even more so that there are a lot of limitations based on, the culture. So how do so you started it out, you mentored some women, and then it was like, okay, I've mentored you, now pay it forward, give back, and mentor someone else. So what types of mentoring or solutions are these women getting? What happens in their lives? What is the transformation for them and their families?
Okay, first of all, I'd just like to step back one step.
Okay.
These women actually sign a pledge. When they have been interviewed and screened and accepted into the program, they sign a pledge with their name, handwritten, to say that they not only will show up for all of their sessions and the group calls, but that they will also then mentor another woman for the following 6 months. And I insist on this a bit because it's a tremendous commitment if you think about it. It's not much. It's 2 hours a month, but you're committing yourself for a year. It's 12 months. 6 months of mentoring and 6 months of being mentored. So that little piece is a very important one. So your question is, what changes as a result of the mentoring? Correct?
Yes, that's one of my questions.
Let me give you some really concrete examples, because it doesn't necessarily happen at the end. It also happens during the mentoring. One of the women who is now a mentor, she called me up. She was so excited. She said, Bonnie, I'm speaking at the United Nations. And the excitement isn't that she'd been asked. The excitement was she felt she could accept. She said, I never in a million years would have accepted that invitation before I was mentored. Now, for some, that might seem quite minor. However, if she was invited to the United Nations, it's because she has something very special to be sharing with others. She has started I guess you'd call it an NGO, non-governmental organization. So she is somebody who has something very special to say. I also am excited because there's one of the women who has run for government, a powerful position. She did not win, and it's not important. What is important is, she said, because of the empowering, the confidence that she gained through the mentoring, she felt that she could actually step forward and do this. And at the same time, she's also being able to pick up the pieces after not having won the election, because she knows that it has been a tremendous learning experience. And more important than that she has been a role model for other women. Because whether she won or not, and this is in an African country where there are not many women running. She has sent the message out to other women visually that, yes, you can run for government. And that to me is exciting. There also are a couple of the women who I've been quite excited about because they have joined boards. They have been asked to sit on boards and accepted. And, you know, Tammy, I'm not sure we appreciate enough the phrase I just used, and accepted. Because women are often asked if they would like to. And we tend to hesitate because we're not that confident. There maybe aren't other women that are going to be on this board. So the fact that these women have said yes and are now sitting on these boards, I think is pretty indicative of something. And running also, when they're changing jobs, applying for positions they never would have dreamed of before. They realize their true potential and they realize their true value in an entirely different way. And I don't mean to be over painting this picture of everything is beautiful for these women and everybody's jumping into, greater confidence. It's not going to be that visual for everyone. What I'm trying to do is to pull out some of the stories that are. And I think also, one of the women in an Asian country actually went in and talked to her boss and explained to, it happened to be a woman, explained to her that she was not going to be able to keep functioning within the structure in the middle of a major conference with a newborn baby. That she would not leave her, what we call, child leave when you've given birth. She would not step out of that to take care of this conference, which everybody expects her to, because this is a culture where you do those things. And what I find exciting is that part of the program is also looking at what do I want to model as a woman for others? What do I want through my actions and my words to be taken on by other women as possible for them? So the fact that this woman in this particular culture actually felt comfortable to finally go in and say she would not be able to do something, which was unfair to begin with from where I'm sitting, but not where she was working. And to be able to change something, that's going to have an impact on the other women in the organization. So these stories may not, sound like, oh, wow, but they really are. They really, really are. Also managing their present jobs and speaking out in different ways. I know several of the women have been using some of the new ideas, techniques that they've learned. I also know because, every month has a theme. And among the themes, there are certain, let me just give you an example. One of the themes that we deal with is your own having confidence in your own leadership. And we also talk about what kind of advice would you give to somebody else? Because let's say I'm one of these mentees, and on a scale of 1 to 10, I feel maybe my confidence is 6. And rather than tell the person what she could do, one of the questions we ask is, Well, what kinds of tips and advice would you give to another woman who feels like you do? It may sound like a very benign question. Actually, it's not. Because when she starts just thinking of the advice she has to share and starts listening to it herself, it's much more powerful than anything I could say to her or you could say to her. So it's also a lot comes through the techniques used in the mentoring. Do you still want some more?
Well, I was thinking about all of these things, and I was thinking about how they all seem like such small things. Like being able to say, I'm not going to return to work because I have a baby at home, and I'm off because I'm off for childcare leave. Therefore, sorry, I'm not coming in to do this project. But if you equate what that is, that's actually empowering yourself, because you're recognizing that you have this obligation to this baby, that this child, and that you're not supposed to have to drop everything to go satisfy all of these other things in the workplace. And then just that ability of being able to say, well, what kind of tips would you give someone who felt like that? And then you're giving people these tools to be able to communicate in a more effective way. And when you think about, again, this is in a global perspective, because a lot of these different cultures, women are really not held in very high esteem. So when every woman who gets mentored and then in turn gives back, they're learning that women can be powerful. And so I'm listening to that and thinking about how, in the United States, we have, cultural mores or whatever about how women are in the workplace, yet, we still are expected to somehow juggle the household and take care of children. And we don't really have a very good healthcare system in the United States. And even the family leave, a lot of these things are, there's a lot of pressure put on women. And it makes me realize that even in the United States, we have it probably better in some ways than other countries, but probably not as good as they have it other places. But the mentoring idea, I can see how, especially that commitment, that they have to commit and be accountable for this, and how you guide them by listening and helping. In your experience, the women who step up to Inspired Women Lead, number one, how do they find out about it? And when they come to you, what are they really hungry for?
I would say most of them learn. Well, those of you listening to this, if there's anybody who's interested, simply go to the website inspiredwomenlead.org and send me a note. That is one way for women to learn about this, or men. And I say or men because men often would like to promote a woman in some way, shape, or form, and perhaps this would be one of the ways they might like to do it. Very often, women come out of audiences that I speak to, Tammy. But most important is every woman who goes through the program will bring in another woman. which is how we're able to keep it out there and really sweeping the world. I say it's a movement because it's not just me trying to do things. It's all of these women within the program who continue in many ways to be a part of it. So let's say that I mentored you and you then were going to mentor somebody. You would choose a woman to be you would invite a woman who you feel could really benefit from this. And you're American, but maybe she's Canadian, maybe she's Mexican, maybe she's Argentinian, because you know women in many places. This is probably the greatest growth method of the movement. It's through each person being mentored, then recommending another person. Now, you would not mentor the person that you recommend. She would be mentored by somebody perhaps in Malawi or maybe India. I couldn't say yet, but it would be somebody from a different culture in a different country. Because part of the richness here, and everything that, you were just saying about the United States, women from every other part of the world will tune into because they have that same difficulty. They have that same juggling act. And I wanted to come back to this because you mentioned an area that is just so important. And that is somewhere we still feel we must be superwoman. And we don't. It's okay, just as the woman I mentioned before who was saying, I will not leave my baby or bring my baby with me. It is a message that also says, I have a right to be a mother. I have a right to be a wife. I have a right to be a professional. And I am all of those. So this juggling act to find this harmony in life is also part of the story that I shared with you before, and that relates so well to what you were just sharing about the United States. So that the point I want to raise here is the fact that every issue touches every woman in some way, shape, or form, no matter where she is in the world, whether she's working in the fields or whether she's working in the Oval Office. All of it touches each of us in some way, shape, or form. And it's one of the, I would say, the golden areas of this mentoring movement is discovering how similar we are, and therefore how much we can be helping each other in different ways, shapes, and forms. And now I'd like to come back to your question, which I've left again. I get too excited. I'm so passionate about this. You had said, where do women come from? So I guess I have answered that.
Yes. Well, I think what you just said is really important. When you said women are women around the globe, we all have the same issues. We just are living in a different part of the world. Maybe we're working in the fields. Maybe we're working in an office. Maybe we're working from home, but we're all trying to manage similar things like being a mother, being a spouse, or maybe you're a single parent, or there's all these responsibilities that we all have. And the beautiful thing I think about Inspired Women Lead is that women are supporting women and recognizing, hey, we can support one another. It's a powerful thing. It's a good thing. I wanted to ask about some of the misconceptions about what Inspired Women Lead is all about. Maybe just tell me about one or two things how people might just might not quite understand what it's all about.
Right. Before that, can I just come back, because you always bring these such pertinent points forward, because you were saying that as women, indirectly anyway, we don't support other women enough, and that part of this mentoring is all about that. In fact, one of the themes is how can I be growing not just my own leadership further, but other leaders in other women, which is just absolutely essential. What I want to say about your question is, I think some of the misconceptions are very basic. I think one misconception is that this is about creating a women's leadership model that's supposed to replace something. It isn't. It is not. As I said earlier, this is all about championing women to step into their own authentic feminine leadership. Each of us is unique. And we're, speaking with women around the world, one of the difficulties is we have this dilemma of, do I play the game to get ahead, or am I just myself and work with my own strong characteristics, my qualities, which are part of my uniqueness and my authenticity, in order to get ahead? And it's a dilemma. It is a dilemma. And part of that dilemma, Tammy, is that, and it goes back to what you said before about perhaps women not supporting women enough. I think so much of this is valuing femininity, valuing women. When we have the same value for our minds and our cleverness, intelligence, our savoir-faire, as much as our beauty, our possibility of procreating and so on, then I think there will be a parity. There will be a better balance. We will have more value given to femininity. Do you know, even we used to talk about soft skills, and soft skills were what the feminine skills were. Now they're not called soft skills anymore because men need them too. They're called essential skills. So what we need is to find a way to make soft skills okay to be called soft. I'd love to share an illustration of what I'm trying to express. A woman at International Women's Day, to close a panel discussion, said, "When my daughter comes down dressed as Batman, and then my son walks in dressed as Superwoman or Wonder Woman, and I don't think a thing of it, then I'll know that there's equal value given to the masculine and the feminine." And I love that illustration, because we don't think a thing of our daughters coming in trousers or a Batman outfit. But if a man, how would you feel if your boyfriend, husband, whoever, decided to dress up as Superwoman and, walk the streets? You'd feel very differently from somehow yourself walking the streets dressed as Batman. And I'm not suggesting either one.
Well, that is interesting, isn't it? How that perception of, they're superheroes, but because one is a female and one is a male, we look at it differently. And like you said, if a little girl dressed up like Batman, we wouldn't even think anything of it. But if a boy dresses up like Wonder Woman or Supergirl, then we would go, that is interesting.
Oh, something's wrong here. So to come back to your question, the whole idea here, and I think the one major misconception is that this is about fitting women into some new model. It isn't. It is really about authenticity and uniqueness. And I encourage the men to do this too. I think they would feel so much better if they could just be their authentic selves and not have to play games. What you don't know maybe is that I spent 15 years specializing in motivation and working with people at all levels of the corporate, banking, international organizations on all kinds of issues, but coming at it from the bias of motivation. And what I found was somehow the higher up you get, the further away you often have gone from who you really are and what you really want to be doing and what you really love and that authenticity that is you. So that's why I'm saying men, I believe, would really, really benefit from this whole concept of going back to building on your own uniqueness, your own qualities, and being yourself in the middle of all of this. And that's another whole conversation.
I was just going to say, Bonnie, we're going to have probably several more conversations, because not only that, because obviously today we're talking about inspired women lead, but if you just, take the feminine or the masculine out of it, and it's all about people who need to get back to the essence of authenticity, or who they are, or who we are. And then also you wrote a book called AgeEsteem, Growing a Positive Attitude Towards Aging, that was published by Morgan James, New York in 2007. So that's a whole nother interview about AgeEsteem. And again, that's an issue that I believe in the world today is really important, because how many million baby boomers do we have right now who are out there, looking and actually like reinventing themselves and moving forward, because people are living longer. So they have like a whole new more lifetime. My dad he's 90 years old. And my mother passed away when she was 59. So it's been more than like 35 years since she passed away. And he's had a whole lifetime without her. So very interesting about all the things that we do and create in our lives. So we have a lot to talk about. So I really appreciate you taking the time, and I know that there's a huge time difference between the United States and Switzerland, so I appreciate you staying up late to talk with me. Before I let you go, remind people how they can get in touch with you.
I would love to have you contact me on the Inspired Women Lead .org website. It's the easiest way to contact me. And you also have further information on Inspired Women Lead. And please, if you're at all interested, or if you know other women you think, yes, this makes me think of, have them contact me. We can have a call. You don't need to sign anything. It's simply to find out what it's all about, what your interest might be. And if it's a non-starter, we still have that unexpected gift of having met each other. So I encourage you to just, go on the website, inspiredwomenlead.org.
inspiredwomenlead.org. Bonnie, thank you so much. I really appreciate all the time that you took today. And I am inspired to want to lead more, because I can just see how important it is that each person, that we all claim who we are and get out there and make the world a better place. And I'm so fortunate I had the privilege of meeting you. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Tammy, and thank you for being one of these images of a woman leader in media. So thank you.
This is Tammy Patzer. Go make it a beautiful day.
You've been listening to the Thought Leaders Show. To get all past shows and to get all future shows, go to thoughtleadersshow.com.